Just before we get started, I'd just like to remind you that I do have an email subscription list. The link for the list is in the description to this video. It's also on my websites, russleach.com and comicbookblackbelt.com, and also over at onlydeathcansaveus.com. That's the title of my new book. It's a Bronze Age inspired cosmic fantasy romp. So if you like the way comics used to be, full of fun and action, check it out and sign up for the email subscription list. Thanks very much for listening, and now on with the video. Hi there, welcome back to the dojo. I am Russ Leach, I'm the comic book black belt, and this is one of a series of videos where I'm going to talk about this book, How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. There are lots of books out there that profess to be able to teach you how to draw comics, and a lot of them are really good. But this is the daddy. This is the book. If you've got one book to teach you how to draw comics, or to help you how to draw comics, this is the one you should have. It's not perfect, but it is very, very close. It also has one of the finest artists ever to grace comics, John Buscema, drawing within its pages, and Stan Lee writing the book. Now, I was very fortunate to be involved in Draw the Marvel Way, which is similar in its approach. I put in there my hints, tips, tutorials of how to draw the Marvel characters. I've been blessed with being able to draw a ton of Marvel characters for Marvel within these pages, and it was 100 issues over just over 4 years. There were some other extremely talented people involved in the book, and it really is a good book in my personal opinion, but it still has not got a patch on this one. So what this series of videos is me effectively going through all the sections, all the lessons, all the chapters of this book, giving you some examples of my artwork that I feel that I've improved, or I've benefited from this book, and how that works for me. And in the chapters where you draw along, I'll be doing some drawings, and hopefully you can draw along with me, and hopefully it'll be of some use to everyone out there, and if nothing else, it'll be an advert for you to go out and buy this book. I'm using a PDF that I got from an educational download. I will put the link to that PDF in the description for each video in the series, but I can't instill enough in you. Go and buy this book and put it on your desk, because it's an absolute must-have. So without further ado, I'll get on with this episode. So Let's Draw the Figure is this chapter. That's chapter 5, as you can see from that wonderful drawing by John Buscema. This previous chapter that run in the previous video was about studying the figure, so the composition of it, how many heads high, putting it together, short, fat, tall, thin, whatever it might be. So it was the composition, the bits and pieces. This is Let's Draw the Figure. This is dynamite, so let's not waste a second. Good old Stan. And it's more about so you studied the figure in the previous chapter, and this is about literally putting it together, putting it in a position, drawing a figure in a position. So it's that in between section, in between a state, as it were, between understanding the bits and pieces of a figure, drawing a figure, and then making it dynamic. And making it dynamic is the next video. This one is about actually how to do it, how to put it together using two forms, using two approaches. There's this stick figure approach and a scribbling approach, and we'll go through both of them in the book. So the first thing a fledgling artist needs is self-confidence, and here's the way to get it. Most anyone can draw a stick figure. They're simple, they're fun, and most important of all, they're the easiest way for you to get the action and the position you want of the character. Don't try to do a complete drawing all at once. Spend all the time you can doodling with stick figures. Stay with them for hours, days, weeks if you feel like it, until they become second nature to you, until you can create virtually any pose you can think of. And that's absolute gold advice. Keep practicing, keep doing it. Here we have a set of figures, and they're very, very simple, and it's just something that you should do. keep practicing, keep producing figures in this way until you're completely comfortable with drawing the figure and positioning that figure in a world, because that's what sequential art mostly has, is people or animals or aliens or whatever it might be, but it's believable figures within an environment, and you've got to get that right, and that's why this is so important. Then as you get more and more facile your stick figures, you can start fleshing them out, as we show you on the next page. So this is a great example. Notice how you can add ovals for the rib cage and the hips. Then for the arms and legs, you can start building the figure by adding cylinders. So you're building up on that stick figure base. For example, say you want to draw Iron Man in a crouch, about to spring at some malicious miscreant. Stan just loves his words. First, you get the proper position for him by means of a simple stick figure, as you can see on the page. Then you build his body, flesh it out by adding cylinders. Note, always draw through the figure. This is really important. That is, even if some portion of the body will be hidden by an arm or a leg, draw it through anyway. You can eliminate it later when you add the limb, which will conceal it. But by drawing through, you make certain that you've got every part of the anatomy positioned in the right place. I see this a lot. And it's a perfect example of this, of where this goes wrong, and why this approach is so important, is say you have a figure, particularly on a cover or something like that, and the figure is turned slightly away from you, and maybe the front arm is stretched out in front and the back arm is purchased back behind the body, maybe with a clenched fist. So you can't see the bicep and the tricep and the upper arm and the shoulder. You can't see that part of it. All you can see is the forearm and the clenched fist. Now you might look at that body sometimes and see that that arm is too far down the body, too high up the body, too long, too far back, too far forward. And what it does is it breaks the believability, it breaks the magic, because something's not quite right with the drawing. And of course, style is everything in comic book art. So you can be drawing characters that are quite squat, or you can draw them, they're quite lanky, whatever style you have for portraying the human body and human characters. That's fine, there's absolutely no problem with that. But draw all your limbs in, because otherwise it can look strange, and then what it'll do is it'll kick the eye out. It'll stop fooling the brain, because the brain will go, oh, there's something not quite right about that, and it'll disturb the rest of the artwork. Often you won't be able to work it out. You won't be able to see what's wrong with it. And it'll disturb your brain. You'll be like, no, I'm not quite sure about that, and it'll colour your opinion of the artwork. And other than that one limb, the art might be absolutely wonderful. So it's really important to have this understanding of how the human body works. Get your basics down, like this stick figure, flesh it out, and make sure all the limbs are in the right place. Okay. Now they've done the same thing here with Spider-Man. And this is all using the stick figure way of doing things. Something else that I think is really important is when posing your figures. I personally don't use 3D models, and although I use photo reference, tracing photos of people, I very rarely do that. There's nothing wrong with doing those things. As an artist, you'd be a liar if you said you didn't trace at some point, because certainly as a commercial artist, you need to get the job out the door, and there are times when you will do such things in order to get a job done, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Obviously not tracing other people's artwork, that's a completely different thing, but tracing the odd photograph, there's nothing wrong with that. And 3D models, if that's what you're into, if that's what you like doing, then fine. But what I find is with 3D models, if you take a photograph of them, or with just tracing figures to put into comic strip, which is a lively, energetic, flowing art form about storytelling, that your storytelling can become very stilted if you're using 3D models or just tracing the pictures, because you can't get those pictures exactly in the position you require for your story, because those photos have been taken with another brief in mind, or or using the 3D figures, you can't quite get the vision that you want because they're not stretched or proportioned in the way that you require, and you have to add something to that. If you can draw people in your mind, if you can draw any figure, and as a draftsman, certainly as some of these masters like John Buscema, where they could draw so many things, they could just pick them out. Again, nothing wrong with photo reference. I use photo reference all the time. But if you can draw figures in any position at any angle, then you can effectively tell any story. You can tell that story from any position, and you can art direct it within your mind and then apply it to the page or the screen or whatever. So there's nothing wrong with 3D models, especially when you're learning. But if there's any way that you can do it without and free yourself of that, personally, this is a personal opinion, I think it gives a freer, more energetic feel to your storytelling flow. So that's a personal thing, and that's why being able to draw the figure is so important. So here we are at the end of this first approach, which is the stick figure approach of building a stick figure. And I've got some examples here of stuff I did for Draw the Marvel Way magazine, where much like with the way that John Buscema was doing his artwork, it's all about layers, and we'll look at even more of that in the scribbling technique, which we're just about to go on to after I've shown you these examples. You keep building layers effectively. You keep building up your drawing until it gets to exactly where you want it to be. And of course, in the real world, that would be photocopies or using the, literally drawing over and over and over on top of your drawing and building it up, or photocopying it, putting it on a light box, and getting what you want out of the next stage of your drawing. In Clip Studio or in Photoshop, they're layers. So it's exactly the same thing. It's just a different approach. It's a different tool set. So don't let your tools master you. Master your tools and use whatever you need in order to get a job done. But be the master of them. Yeah, make sure that it's coming from you and you're not being driven by the tool set that you're using. So here's some small examples. The Spider-Man thing is from a classic story that I can't remember, but I had to put it together, and you can see there's some very basic elements to the robot figure there. It's just like spheres and sticks, and then actually in this Shogun Warrior, I had to put in a sort of a stick figure underneath. You can see it's greyed out. With a lot of these lessons and techniques that we put into the Draw the Marvel Way magazine, we had to shorthand them a little bit because there wasn't enough space to put everything, and of course you can't see somebody literally building up a drawing, and then what we did was we partitioned them down into small segments so that people could follow along, but they're all effectively one piece of work that you've expanded out into different layers. So for instance, here's a Captain America one, and you can see the stick figure on the left hand side with some body work around it, just to give it some just to give you an idea of where it places. You can also see that Captain America's back leg is drawn through the front leg, so that I get the limbs in the correct position, and then it's fleshed out. Now, like I say, this would all be in one drawing, but because of the nature of digital tools, I was able to layer it out into different drawings or into different presentations, so that you could show that and how the drawing progressed. There's the final links for that. Something else here, I think we did this one as well. This isn't quite as good an example because you can't see the sticks as well, and also it should be around its other side, so don't go left to right, go from top right all the way round clockwise, and you can see how the drawing is built up. Here's the final drawing of that, the final ink on that. Just quite pleased with that. And another one, this is Wolverine and Apocalypse, I believe. There it is. And again, you can see some sticks going on that top left hand panel. You can see where I've put the joints in and then applied the general musculature to it, then applied proper animal muscles and tendons, what have you, over the top, and then the details over that, and that ended up looking like this, which I was quite pleased with actually. It's quite dynamic. And you could also, what's really helpful with the whole stick figure approach is also perspective as well. So foreshortening characters and what have you. You can see here I'm looking straight down on Thor, and he's reaching up to us, and his whole body is in perspective, and you can see in the left hand image there that I've started off with a stick figure, and it has really helped produce the three-dimensional perspective of the whole drawing. So we've looked there at the first part of that chapter where they're talking about using stick figures, but then they go on to scribbling, and this is something you used to see John do all the time. So you could say maybe using a stick figure is a slightly more naive way of doing things, although there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that all the time, because it's a great technique. But as he says here, now then, for those of you who've mastered the cubes and its cousins, and for those who really understand the construction of the human figure, so you're kind of going beyond that stick figure way of doing things, and you kind of already know to apply yourself to the page or the screen or whatever. There's another approach to forming the body. It's as basic and as obvious as a simple process of scribbling. So if you're a more advanced student, you may get a kick out of this. Never underestimate the importance of scribbling. After you've started with your stick figure, build it up by scribbling, as in the drawings on this page. As John explains it, it's like being a sculptor and building a figure with clay. That's just so important to have that aspect of building on top. Like I say, in the digital world, it's layers. In the real world, you're actually just applying over the top of your drawing and maybe photocopying using a light box to help you produce the next stage of your drawing. But it's all a build up of work, and you can see here he's really dropped the stick figure on the top one. There's kind of something going in there, but you can see already how much he knows about not just anatomy, but the dynamics of human anatomy, and the weight and the energy he's put into that silly little drawing of Thor is amazing. As you can see, the same technique applies for any pose, any mood, and any person, male or female, young or old. Can you now easily recognize the progress of the sketches? Can you see we start with a primitive stick figure and continue to scribble over it? So it's this build up of layers of how you produce your work, and coming at it from that basic understanding of the stick figure. Even if the stick figure is only in your head, yeah, you're still starting with that basic element. How do I apply my figure to the page? Never let yourself forget, you always build your drawing starting with a loose sketch and fleshing it out. It's the professional way, the best way, the Marvel way. Personally, I would agree with that. That's the way to do it. Don't ever think you're going to hit the page and get the final image straight away. It just doesn't work that way. Think about what's underneath the skin. Think about how three-dimensionally you're building your characters. And it doesn't matter whether it's a character like Ben 10, that's obviously like a 2D kind of thing, or characters like Marvel characters. You still want to get that believability. You want the mind to be fooled into the motion and the drama, the energy and the flow of your sequential art. So here's some examples from my art. This is from Unstoppable Comics Storm Chasers issue 8, which I'll be inking soon. I've done all the pencils for it, and it's the end of an arc. Go check them out, unstoppable.com. They're fantastic books, and they're great fun, great superhero fun books. So you can see I've not done so much stick figure here. I've just literally dropped in. This could be a thumbnail that I've blown up. So for instance, I did a video about thumbnails for my Only Death Can Save Us video log, and back in the day I would produce thumbnails about, I don't know, about the size of a playing card or what have you, and I'd have them all lined up on a page, and then I'd blow them up on a photocopier, put them on a light box, and I'd start putting my roughs together for the actual final page size, as it were. But with things like Clip Studio and Photoshop, I can just make my page smaller, quickly flick out a thumbnail, and then just blow that up when I'm ready to draw. And that's the magic of those layers and the tools I was talking about earlier. So it's exactly the same process. It's just I don't have to go away and photocopy everything and put it on a light box anymore. I can flick it in at a lower size and then just zoom in that I'm closer to the actual page size, and then I can do a sketch at the actual page size, and then I can actually blow it up to the size that I would be drawing at, which is pretty much exactly what you draw on a standard A3 sheet of paper that you'd use for comic book board. I used to draw on Bristol paper. So as you can see here, there's that sketch, and then I'm throwing in some more detail on the anatomy and bringing in the background there, and then finalizing that anatomy. Because I do all my own inks, I don't have to draw my pencils to a high degree, but they're certainly good enough for me to put inks over the top, and you can see that final page there, and how it's all come together. I don't think there's anything more on that page now. And then on my own book, this is page 8 of Draw the Marvel Way, of Only Death Can Save Us, and it again started off with a sketch, thumbnail sketch, very loose. What's great about being able to put these put your figures down in the way that they've shown you is that you can also place as well, composition, so you know how many figures are there, where they've got to be, add them in the appropriate place, and you just sketch those in, and then you can compose your panel. So you can see there, I think I started off, yeah, so that's a loose, loosely going in once I've done the sketch again, so I'm building up. I've got some movement in there, some direction and some drama, and then picking out the details, picking out the anatomy better, and then getting onto the final pencils there. And there you see, finished up, and I have an ink somewhere. Oh yes, and there's the final inked page over the top of it. I pretty much style myself on Bronze Age art. I'm a big fan of Joe Sinnott's inks. I just love that that boldness of the inks. They're just, that's what I try to instill in my own work. So anyway, that's it really. We're on to chapter 6. Like I said, last chapter was about composing, how tall figures are, what they're made of. This is about drawing the figure. How do you approach drawing the figure? And in the next chapter, chapter 6, with another fantastic piece of artwork of Namor, however you call him, by John Buscema here, we'll be talking about dynamics and adding drama and energy and weight into your characters. So that's it from me for this video. Thanks so much for sitting through it and watching, and hopefully you've been working along as well, and you'll be drawing your own stick figures. Maybe I'll do some drawing in the next video as well. I've been showing examples of my work. I'll do a little bit of live drawing in it. I don't like doing too much of that because I can't talk much while I'm drawing. So doing two things at once is difficult for me. So that would be quite boring for you. So whereas being able to talk through the chapter and talk about what it means to me and what it might mean to you is probably a far more interesting thing. But I'll maybe do a quick bit of drawing in the next video. If you're already a subscriber, thank you so much. I'll throw this in right at the start. Thank you so much for subscribing. It's a real honour, and it's very humbling to have people want to subscribe to my channel, listen to me blather on about comic books and comic book art, and take an interest in the videos. Thank you so much. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe so that I can build it up. I do have a giveaway at 500, and there'll be giveaways in the future as well as I move up that scale. Obviously, like, share, subscribe. Sharing is great. It really helps the algorithm. Liking, if you don't like it as well. Tell me why. I'm always open to discuss comic books, comic book art, my art, your art, the videos, whatever. Find me on Twitter, Instagram, over at Facebook, of course at russleach.com, comicbookblackbelt.com, and my book onlydeathcansavers.com. There's an email list, the subscription list. There's links for it in the description to this video, and obviously all the addresses I've given you. So please sign up so I can keep you informed about the book and the channel in general, and I won't fill your inbox up with rubbish. So once again, thanks very much for joining me for this video, and I'll be back again with chapter 6 real soon. And thank you. I'll see you again. Bye bye. Thanks for watching Comic Book Black Belt. If you've enjoyed the content from this video, please like, share or subscribe, and come over and follow me on Twitter. It's been great having you in the dojo. See you again soon.